So welcome, everybody. I'm so delighted that you could join me today. And because today is my very first Knit and Hatter Care and Share show. And the reason I'm doing this is because I was inspired to do it. And when Marion Egan is inspired to do something, she does it. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not a good thing, but I always follow my intuition because my intuition for me is my sat nav. It's my GPS system, which I call my guidance pioneering solutions. And when I follow that, I just cannot go wrong. It's like setting your sat nav when you're going on a journey and you want to get to your destination. By doing that, it has brought me to where I am today. So it was only not so long ago, only a couple of weeks, when I got this inspiration to create Knit and Natter, which is come along, have your tea, coffee, and sit and chat and knit if you want to, or if you need any tips or hints on knitting, because that's something that I do. It has become part of, it is a part of me. For me, knitting is, or crocheting, is all about, it's my meditation, it's my go-to. I was so fortunate to have been given the gift of somebody teaching me at a very young age 6. I started, I think it was age 6. I could have been younger, but I'll say 6. And teaching me how to knit. It was life-saving because many times I ended up in my bed not being able to stand, sit, or walk. And I think I would have gone absolutely crazy or doolally, as some people say here in Ireland, that if I didn't have that, I would have been totally lost. It's my way of escapism. It's my meditation. And also it's when I do it, the joy I get from it, it really lifts my spirit. And just here during the summertime, I was teaching my granddaughters how to use my knitting machine. And, you know, as the 10-year-old, the eldest of the 2 girls said, gosh, I'm going to have something to show for myself at the end of this. And, you know, when you see them playing with their iPads and you're saying, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but too much of that is not a good thing. But when you're teaching creativity and then you have got something to show. So for instance, this was the first thing that the granddaughters knit, right? And they had such a blast knitting it. And then we went on to knit a skirt and a top and a hat. So they had a great time doing all of that. And it was so simple, but this was a maths lesson but turned into fun. And they had something to show at the end of it. But getting back to Marion Egan and why does she knit? I came from a very large family and it was very hard to find a space in the house where you could be by yourself. There was never room to be by yourself. So Marion one day decided that I would go into the attic space in the house, which is above the ceiling of just on the roof space. And luckily my dad had put a light up there, but you couldn't stand in it. You could sit in it, but you couldn't stand in it. There's no windows. So I would go up there, turn the light on and close the hatch. And that meant nobody knew where I was. So this was my way of escaping the noise of the house. And that's where I used to sit and knit. But I can also remember sitting by the fireside at my mum's, beside her chair. She'd sit by the fire and she'd be knitting. She was a great knitter. And she taught me all I knew. But also her friends used to come to the house once a week, at least once a week, if not more, for tea and a chat. And this is where I thought about the knit and natter, because they had such a great time. They'd sit and they'd talk and they'd get into trouble with their knitting. They'd say, oh gosh, how do I get out of this? And somebody would have a solution or an answer. But I can also remember sitting on a little stool at mum's feet knitting, and also in her neighbor's house. I'd be in her house sitting by her side on a little stool and she'd be teaching me what she knew. I'm so grateful for that. because it really has saved my bacon, as they say. As I say, it's my time out, it's my meditation time. And then I started doing my own creations. Now, I used to go by patterns. Obviously, when you're learning, you do a pattern, but now I don't. So this is my signature little cardigan that I start, right? But I don't start. Normally, you start at the band and you work your way up. This is crochet and this is knitting. So I combine the two. So I start with crochet. And then I take these two, this is the front, one of the front sides. And then I turn these two upside down. And then I pick the stitches up here. And then I knit and shape. And then I come back and do all the bands. It doesn't really matter how you do it. What matters is the joy and the pleasure and how it comes out. For me, it's such a joy and it's such a pleasure. And for my mental health, because my mental health is so important to me. I'm doing I'm going to be a speaker on World Mental Health Day in October. I'm looking forward to that. I won't be talking about knitting, I'll be talking about something else, because as an artist and also a brain gym consultant and trainer, that's what I'll be speaking about. I'll be using those aspects. But talking about the art, today is a very important day for me. Because in 2020, I created my painted images and brought them into a card deck. And that was to help two family members who had life-threatening illnesses. But today, I pulled card number 5,000 because I kept a record of every card I pulled from day one. I started recording. Card one was pulled on the 31st of March, 2021. And today, this is card number 5,000. And this is called Beginning of New Freedom. And on the back, I have a message. And the message says, a fresh start and a new beginning and rejuvenation have already started within you. It is time for peace and reconciliation. Liking and loving yourself is your first step on your new journey. Now, this is very significant and also has a frequency number. And if you want to take down this frequency number, do please take it down. It's 484-333-331. And installing the frequency number, if you are suffering with stress or anxiety and you install that number, it can calm down your central nervous system and reduce your stress and anxiety. And the reason I'm saying that is this is what I've proven over the last number of years of doing this for myself and for my clients. But the interesting thing about this card is the card before that, this ends up with liking and loving yourself is your first step on your new journey. The card before that is called I Equal Everything. And it starts off with loving and liking yourself is the best, most wonderful gift that you can give yourself. It is not being selfish, it is being self-full. And when your needs are met first, then you have all the essence to meet the needs of others with love, grace, and an appreciative attitude. And why am I sharing this with you if this is a knit and natter? But this is what I will be bringing into knit and natter. I will be giving a frequency number and a message at every session that I do. Again, for me, I've been working with magnifying world peace. Now, the world peace would be absolutely amazing if we had world peace. And I'm looking forward to the day when that happens. But the world peace starts with me. I need to have peace within myself, first and foremost. And this is where my knitting helps me. Because when I'm lost in creativity, either creativity in knitting or painting, I'm at one with myself. It's where I go into my heart center. And as a founder of Art Magic, and the magic is my acronym for my ability to go into my center because that's where the magic happens for me. And my knitting and my painting allow me to do that. And my creativity. So I've put together a few courses. I also have a few, so this here, how to crochet this square. Now, I know a lot of you will know how to crochet and you can do your own crochet, but I have a free tutorial on how to do this. And that can be found on the Great Discovery under my courses. I just love what I do. I really do love what I do. And, you know, when I think about the summertime and teaching my granddaughters how to use the knitting machine and how to do this creativity, because I didn't do this. Yes, we did the maths on this and we made the measurements. And this is where the maths came in, because 1 inch is equal to 5 stitches. And we had to multiply out how many inches and how many stitches do we need to make these garments to fit the doll and to make it turn out correctly. So that was a maths lesson disguised as fun, because it really had good fun. But the girls knit that themselves. I just told them and showed them how to do it. So this, our children are our future. So if you think about your kids, you know, teach them. There's 2 things that we really need to teach our kids. One is how to have good rooting, grounding foundation. And the second thing is teach them to have wings, how they can fly. Give them the tools that they need to stay centered, stay grounded. Because when I think of how I grew up in the trauma and the turmoil and the torment that I had from the trauma I had as a young child, this is why the knitting was so important for me, because that was my escapism. I could forget about the blame and shame I felt as that young child. And when I'd go into my knitting and my crocheting, I got lost in that. And I got lost in the creativity. These creations are all my own. I don't use patterns anymore. It's just, I get an idea. I might even see a garment in a shop and I'll say, oh, that's interesting. I mean, this is what I'm wearing was actually a blanket that I crocheted many years ago. And this circle, I just said, I wonder, could I make a top out of this? And I did. I created a little bolero, and then I knit the top that goes underneath. So when I get an idea, I think about it and I bring it to fruition. The majority of time it works out. Sometimes it doesn't, but when it doesn't work out, I learn by the, I call them learning curves. I don't use the word mistakes because there are no mistakes. When you do something and it doesn't work, then you tweak it. It might only have to be a little tweak in order for it to work. And that's how I progress with what I'm doing. But getting back to our kids and our future, say our kids are our future, teach them well, give them roots, give them wings, teach them how to be confident, to be sure within themselves, teach them how to say no, you know, because when a child is in trouble, open your arms, don't open your mouth. They need comfort and they need security. And the thing about that is, I was listening to a documentary not so long ago where a lady was abused as a very young child, and she woke up in the middle of the night and there was somebody on top of her, and she never told her parents. And the thing was, she didn't know how to tell her parents. So the security, we need to be able to teach our kids to come and say and be open, and they can tell us anything. So as I say, teach them to have good rooting, good foundation, and teach them how to spread their wings and fly. So what I'm doing is, I'm going to leave you with this little saying, I'm weaving 1 stitch at a time is literally how I'm weaving my piece for myself and then emanating that piece out into the world. So I'm not sure if you have any questions or any comments, but if you have, please feel free. be lovely to hear.
Yeah, that was interesting listening to how you got started with that, and I grew up in a large family too, so I know what you're saying. There's not a whole lot of space, and when you sometimes you just want that private time, and I had a couple little secret hideouts too where nobody could find you, so I get that part of it. Um, as far as knitting, I tried knitting once. I think I was in my early 20s, and I like how how you kind of put that together, and when you start something, you finish it, and when you get a message to start something, you do it. So I had started this blanket, and it's like after doing it for a couple of days, I was ready to just throw it out the window, right? It's like, no, I started this, I'm gonna finish it because it's like when you start, yeah, how you finish one thing is how you finish everything, or how you start one thing is how you start everything. So there's a lot of that. So I really picked up some of the insights just from your creation and that creativity. So when you have a thought in business and creative. So I started looking at it as like, okay, I'm not a knitter, and I don't plan on picking up the knitting needles, but how can I use these messages in what my creativity is? And
Hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, because I kind of did the same thing. You get an idea, and it's like, wonder if that's going to work. And you get out there and you put it together and you do whatever. And then, like you say, sometimes it works great, and other times it only works sort of great.
Yeah.
But you
Mm.
did it, right? And it's like life; everything can get better. So I'm sure more than once you had to take all those stitches and peel them out because all of a sudden you found a hole or something, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then you start over. But it's that persistence and that drive. So to be able to stay and do that, and sharing it with your grandchildren. And I liked how you said you were teaching them math, and when you first said that at the beginning, I'm thinking, how did math come into this, right? I'm like, Okay, whatever." And then you shared how you had to count these stitches and then multiply them, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't know that.
And it's interesting because, as we were, because, I mean, the back of the cardigan is literally just, it's a square, as you can see, right? Okay, the
Mhm.
shape of the front and the shaping on the sleeves. So we drew out a square and we figured out 5 stitches equals 1 inch. So how many inches do we need to go across the back for the doll? And then how many rows are in that inch? So how many rows do we need to do to get the length that we require? So it was a maths lesson, but at the end of the maths lesson, they had something to show for it, which is,
Yeah,
nice.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
But the,
it's a perspective, how you look at it differently, and I love that. That's brilliant.
but the other thing too, Beverly, like what you said about business, for me, when I do start something, I will finish it. And when I think of the commitment that when I started, say, with my cards, because I didn't know when I created my cards, I didn't know how they were going to work. So I needed to know, well, how does it work? So I did my cards with clients, and their pain went away, their anxiety went away, their stress levels came down. And I'm so grateful that I continued on a daily basis. Now there might have been a day or two I missed, but even when I went on holidays, I recorded. I brought my cards with me because they're handy to bring. I knit little bags or crochet little bags to bring them in. But I also have them in digital form now on my phone, which is handy. But I did them when I was on my holidays. And my commitment to, like, that's 4 years and 6 months now. I've been doing that on a daily basis. So that commitment, for me, that's total research. What it has done for me has been truly inspiring. It has given me um, the what's the word I'm looking for is the discipline. I've taken responsibility for my own health by doing it because it has really helped me with my health. It's helped other people with theirs. But the discipline and the commitment to do it on such a long, ongoing basis. So today, being a very special day, this is my first recording of this show, which I hope to do on a weekly basis, and just giving a space for people to come and talk about, well, what is on your mind? What can we get rid of? What can we create? So it's just an open forum. That's what this is for me. But as I said, I was inspired to create these. And look what has happened. These cards now are in 19 countries, helping people. It's a self-healing tool. It's helping people with their own health. My creativity and my knitting are just, again, for me, it's my saving grace. I'll give you an idea. I just have here, again, this was something I said, I wonder will this work, and I took a piece of, this is just a test piece, really.
Mm-hmm.
But test piece, then I said, okay, so that'd be nice down the center of a jumper, right? So then I knit the other side of the jumper. So this is the other side. This is, this is the sleeve side, and this is the neck side. And then, so that became this. So this is the jumper. Okay, so this is how it came together.
So how
But
did you get all those little glittery things in there?
that's actually, they're weaved into the wool. That's actually,
Oh, okay.
I don't know how, that's how comfortable that's going to be. I have no idea. But this is how my brain works. I have an idea. I say, okay, I wonder, will that work? So take the little piece of information that you get and bring it through to fruition. And then I remember, do you know what? I remember the day that I was listening to, I think it was Bob Proctor, if I'm not, either Bob Proctor or Jim Rohn, one or the other, because I would listen to those guys all day, every day, or Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? I love listening to people who have such wisdom to share, because that's where I get my wisdom. I follow through. But it's like you have an idea and you say, I wonder will it work? And then you work it out. And I remember one of them saying that Alexander Graham Bell, and I can't remember the other gentleman, who developed the telephone, which we now have like mini computers in our hands now. But both of them got the information at the same time, and both of them brought the telephone to the market. But if we don't follow through on pure and utter inspiration, look where it can bring you. You never know what's going to come from what you do and what you're inspired to do. That's why when I'm inspired to do something, I'll do it and I'll see it through to the end, But it gives me great peace. It gives me great joy. And what I want to do then is to spread that peace and that joy to those that are looking for peaceful outcomes. Because there's many people out there at the moment, Beverly, who are crying out for some solution, but they don't know where to turn.
Right. It's just that guidance and to be able to hear, stories like what you just shared is that you don't feel alone then. It's like, oh, I maybe I'm not so weird after all, I'm not the only one that has thought like this or felt like that. And, so I'm seeing, more and more storytelling where people are saying, this is where I was and this is what I did to keep on going. And I see so many people starting in business and never completing because they give up before they really get the momentum. And, it's like being on a roller coaster. You don't know when that thing's going to dive and twist and all these different things, and it's moving through all of those challenges because you didn't just pick up a knitting needle and all of a sudden here you had this massive creation. You didn't just stick your hands in paint and smear it all over and have this massive $1 million piece of art, right? No, every artist and every adventure, every person who has been successful in business, they started at a beginning and just kept getting better and better. And it's that communication when you, like you said, you listen to Jim Rohn and you listen to Bob Proctor and Joe Dispenza, it's when you start listening to those that have this wisdom. And now being in the baby boomer era, this is the wisdom of life and being able to leave that legacy like what you did with your grandchildren. So all of these different hobbies and arts really blend together in everything. So really, having a successful business is an art,
Yeah.
right? And so it all boils back down to that, and it's following your intuition. It's being consistent, and it's just keeping on doing and always finding a better way. Hey, look what I turned out. I was like, oh, okay, I put this together and it's like, one sleeve is this long and the other sleeve is this short, and it's like, well, I can roll it up and then it's fine. You know? So you make adjustments, right?
Everything can be fixed. I mean, even when I make mistakes or, even with this now, and I notice, oh, I've dropped a stitch, I don't rip it back. I go down and I knit it up. So I, I used to rip it back until I realized you don't need to do that. You can actually go down and you can knit it back up again and capture it again, So there's always a way. There is always a way. But the inventors of this world would not have, invented things if they just gave up at the first try. You just keep going.
Exactly, exactly. You talked about, and I think it's the light Edison with the light bulb, and it took him almost 2,000 tries. But
Yeah.
did he say he failed? 1,999, let's just use that number. No, he said, I found 199 ways it didn't work, and then I found one that did. So it's your perspective, right? And how you perceive things. But it was that consistency. So where would we be today if he hadn't have kept on going and been persistent? I mean, eventually we would have probably had lights, but we just had it sooner. And so again, it's that never give up, and I like the story about the gold digger, and he's been up there for months, and digging in these caves and picking and hammering and everything and shaking the waters and the whole thing, trying to find that, you know, gold mine. And finally one day he says, I've had enough. And he laid down his pick. Several years later, some young little whippersnapper comes in and picks up the pick, and it's like, oh wow. And he one more swing, and boom, he found the mother lode. So you never know where that mother lode is coming from if you don't stay consistent and persistent, right?
And you were talking about Edison and the light bulb, and Nikola Tesla had come up with a similar, how to light up the world without having all these electric wires and everything.
Yeah.
And like he was stopped in his tracks because it wasn't going to make any money. But as he says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency and vibration and energy. And that's why when I did my paintings, I said to myself, everything has a frequency. So this image here has a frequency, and I created the frequency for it. This image has a frequency, etc. And so every card has a frequency, and that frequency carries a message, and that message can delete the distress, the pain, whatever you're feeling. But you need to set the intention of what you want to achieve. Um,
Exactly, exactly, and I love it when you talk about frequencies because that was my life too, and I mean, we look at the frequencies and the electrical wires in the house. Well, what happens when something happens and it gets a short? Well, the same thing happens in your body, right? So if you've got the neurological system and something runs amok in the brain, it can't get the messages to the rest of the body, so there's no alignment. So with frequency, yeah, and I use frequency as well because to me everything is a frequency and all this solid matter out here was just frequency slowed down. So it is, frequency and it's understanding that. And so I love what you've done with your artwork and being able to even work with you on the creation of digital decks and things to really start to make some different impacts has been a pleasure because, we're in it to win it and change the world and it's that collaboration. So bringing people together on your show here with the knit and natter, is it's how are we knitting our lives so that it does matter? right? And so it's just a weaving of everything in life together. So I love that you started this, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
So next week, same time, same day. And I look forward to my magnifying world piece, but it starts with me. So I'm going to continue weaving and knitting and nattering and caring and sharing. And I really want to thank you for your contribution and for joining me today. And I'm going to send this recording out to those who have requested it. And same time, same day next week. See you then.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you.